So real quick, we're talking now with the great pianist, composer, arranger Eric Jones, who was just recently inducted into the Savannah Jazz Hall of Fame. So that's really awesome, man. Congratulations. So why don't we just start off with tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where did you come from?
Yeah. Well, I'm a Southern boy. I'm from Georgia, actually, Southwest Georgia, small town called Moultrie. Not a lot of people know where that is. I guess it depends on if you lived in Southwest Georgia, you know where it is. But between Tallahassee, Florida, and Albany, Georgia. But yeah, I'm a product of living in living in the South, and yeah, I grew up. Um, Actually, my musical journey started around the age of 5, playing piano, playing by ear. It wasn't the first instrument that I wanted to play. I actually wanted to play drums, but just wasn't quite efficient, I guess. But at 5, you're not really efficient at a lot of things. So I gravitated towards piano by the way of my grandmother having a beat up upright piano in the living room, which nobody played. But I do remember I had a cousin that would come over and would play. He would play Purple Rain. He would play songs by Prince. He would sing Purple Rain and play piano, and I was fascinated by that. So I guess my first influence was probably him and Prince. I guess for a strange reason. But I started playing. Just driving my mom family crazy because I was just obsessed with it, and that just kind of led into one thing to another, and started playing in church actually. So yeah, and then from there I actually started playing trumpet as well. Actually, middle school. Yeah,
man, stay away.
Hey, I did too, because I only did like 2 years of it. And it is the cool thing about it was I actually liked playing trumpet. I felt like I probably could have done something because I was playing in band, but I also would bring the trumpet and play it at church, and would try to do a little bit of both. But I didn't want to do marching band, and there was no way to avoid marching band, so I just dropped out and focused only on piano. So yeah, that was, but it was just meant to be. I think I tell people when I started, piano, I really think back, I think piano chose me because it was just the one instrument that really, I think I gravitated, even when I was playing trumpet, I still love piano, and all of that. So yeah, so those are the early days.
Right on. Well, thank you, marching band, for keeping him off my horn. Oh man,
yeah,
I tell you.
Well, the crazy thing about it too, and I remember when I got to college, and I was playing in jazz band. I was at a small college, and we didn't have enough players, so I had to get back on trumpet, which was just horrifying. It was traumatic because playing a brass instrument is unforgiving. So I mean, imagine taking a couple of years off and saying you're gonna play it again. It's physically it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I was reminded that no, this is not for me.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, you got James Berry, Juan Roland, Kevin Bales,
Yep.
3 piano player. Well, Juan saxophone, but he could play the piano too. But all these guys can play the trumpet, man, and they get on that horn and they take that piano knowledge and put it on the trumpet, and they're just they're playing around and smiling and goofing off with them, but inside I'm like, oh God, I gotta practice.
Well, you don't have to worry about that with me because I couldn't transport it. But yeah, those guys are amazing. I've seen Juan play trumpet, and I've heard about Kevin playing trumpet too. And I think I saw an old photo of Kevin, years ago playing trumpet. So yeah, I can only imagine. I know he did a lot of stuff. I think at UNF as well on trumpet. So yeah, it's crazy. It's a weird. I found that there's been a number of trumpet players that have gravitated towards piano or vice versa, I think. And from my understanding, I heard that the great, oh my gosh, Clifford Brown actually was really efficient at piano. He was a great pianist. Wow. From some of, the old timers, one of my mentors was saying, I think because he got in a car accident prior to getting into an accident that ultimately ended his life, but he had to spend a year. He couldn't move around or whatever, so he started picking up piano, and I heard he was pretty efficient. He was really good. So yeah, that's a weird comment. I don't know. I guess it's because it's a brass instrument, and just the amount of, you have to keep your chops up. I mean, it's one of those things, it's unforgiving if you don't practice, if you don't, I think with piano, my piano teacher would say, you can, one day of practicing, you can probably fool the audience or whatever, or like after 2 days, you can fool the audience or whatever, but then after that, you can't fool anybody. I think with a brass instrument, it's like it's such a physical instrument to play, it's unforgiving. You can have trumpet. I don't.
So who was your first big jazz influence? What was the jazz artist or the piece of jazz music that you heard that you said, I have got to go after this music. I've got to find out what it's about?
Yeah, I think the turning point for me, because when I started taking lessons rather late on piano, and the pianist, my piano teacher, was a jazz pianist / jazz drummer. But we did do some traditional piano lessons at the time. But he mentioned people I never heard of. I remember the first time he mentioned Thelonious Monk, and I was like, what type of name is that? Like, all these people, it felt like a mythology or something like that. Like who names himself Thelonious Monk? But I started gravitating because I think there was a strong connection to what happens in church and to what you do in jazz, because they both incorporate improvisation. And for at the time when I was playing in church, from a technical standpoint, a lot of the things that I played that I didn't realize I was playing was somewhat harmonically advanced, even though I couldn't say why. But he kind of brought it to my attention. But when I got into college, I remember watching a documentary. It was a documentary that was hosted by Chick Corea, and it was discussing the lineage of jazz piano. And that really blew me away, because I realized that there's a long line of great pianists that contribute to the music. And probably, and I'm sure a lot of pianists will say this, probably the person that really ignited me was Art Tatum, which when I think back now, I must have been naive, because some people, I mean, you hear Art Tatum, you're going to want to run and never play the instrument. But I remember seeing like a short video of him in a trio, drumless trio, guitar and bass. And it was, it's an old video, and him playing. I never seen anybody play so fast. And the execution, the precision, all of that just like blew me away. And it helped me out even when I was, studying traditional piano. I was like, okay, so how can I work to get to that point, So it was compelling, because it was like, man, okay, so technique and all of those different things that, you work on, it encouraged me. But yeah, he was my first really big influence. I was just like a, Art Tatum fiend. I tried to imitate him, not as well, but it was like I was inspired, as opposed to, being scared to death. I think it was a combination of both.
Yeah.
But Art Tatum, Oscar Peterson, those guys at the beginning.
That's incredible that Art Tatum was who got you. That's, man. Because like you listen to Art Tatum, man, incredible things he was playing. Incredible.
Yeah. His solo stuff is really amazing. I mean, Tiger Rag is probably is one of his best, at least in my opinion, one of his greatest recordings. And then, of course, me being a person I am, I like to start reading. Let's do some research, okay? And then I've read stories of, it's like, when he was, record on, he was suspicious of the recording devices, which I know a lot of pianists were, both classical and jazz, because recording was still a fairly new way of capturing, material. And so they said that, he would hold back. They say, so even if you heard him in a recording, and, he lived a rather short life, it wasn't the full, gist of what he can do, because he was somewhat suspicious of the devices, because it was such a new technology. So I was just like, you got to be kidding me. Like, so I'm only seeing a half of what he can do, and reading these stories account of him, people seeing him live. I mean, just he's still a legend to me. I think a lot of pianists is a legend too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's timeless. I got a question coming in over Facebook here. So Shay is a novice piano player, and she's basically asking about how to read lead sheets. So you got the melody and the chord symbol.
Yeah.
And so she's asking for the suggestion or the first process of learning how to incorporate that. What do you do in your right hand? What do you do in your left hand when you got a lead sheet?
Oh, wow. It's such that's a good question. And I probably won't have enough time to go through everything, it's a lot of work, but I guess one approach is the biggest approach as pianists. A lot of times what we do is we are accompanists. We really provide harmonic support. I always say pianists are kind of like we add a lot of color, and I think the reason why the idea of adding color is being able to play the chord changes that you see. So understanding what the chords are, learning how to play the chords, and if I have a student, whatever, we start with just the basis of, major chords and minor chords, and then we go from there, because, the harmony can get really complex, and so it's a certain process you have to go through. And I think one of the things is because as pianists, we spend so much time not playing the melody. We're usually playing behind somebody that's playing the melody, such as yourself. So we would need to be able to play the harmony. So, I mean, understanding the harmony first, how to play those chords, because I'm going to assume that she can read, of course, you want to look at leashes if you couldn't read, notes or whatever. But a lot of times when somebody is making that transition from reading legit music to lead sheets, a lot of the challenges is in how do I play like a C major 7 chord, and then once you learn how to play that, then it's like, okay, how can I play the progression in a lead sheet and be able to play it smoothly? We call that great voice leading. So you got to learn how to voice the chord in a way where it doesn't sound like you're, jumping all over the place, so to speak, where it sounds smoothly. The harmony, you're transitioning from one chord to the next. But to give her one suggestion, a good book she probably want to check out is the Jazz Piano book by Mark Levine, which is a great book.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I mean, there's a lot of great literature, but that's probably one of the books I had when I first, studied. A lot of my teachers was like, get the book, you got to get it. So
awesome.
Yeah, that's a condensed answer.
Yeah, I would say for Shay, number one, set up a lesson with Eric Jones on Skype or Zoom. You'll be good to go. But yeah, it's interesting. You said, piano players as accompanist, you add a lot of colors to the chord changes. And for me, I love playing with piano players who fix all my wrong notes.
Well, I tell you, it's good to have a good bass player and a good rhythm section that can kind of cover up for my inadequacies, man. I tell you, it's just, but as Miles say, there's no wrong notes, right? So, I tend to go with that philosophy.
They're not wrong. They're just housing a lot of tension so that you can release it.
There you go. Tension and release, man. You know how it is. That's what it's all about.
It was like, man, what were you doing on that blues that you were playing? And it's like, well, I was messing up, but I'm not gonna tell you. I
was playing out.
I was outside stepping, and I was.
Yeah, you just kind of, create some a new, large words, and that really doesn't have any meanings, and throw them off with that.
Yeah. Man, I would love a conversation with you right now about approaches to improvisation, about how some people have an affinity for learning licks and they're like a lick based approach, or they learn like 100 different licks and all 12 keys. And then they just kind of, it's very, approaching that way. They're very clean and very accurate pretty quickly, but then it's unsoulful. It's not, they're playing too mechanically as opposed to conceptually and organically. And then the other approach is to take a lick and figure out what is the concept behind that lick. Why do you like it? And then you extract that concept and you shed that concept so that then when you understand, you're playing conceptually and organically. And I mean, we could go on a huge tangent on that.
Oh yeah. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but I think there's a common. I think probably one of the best approach. Well, and I kind of fall into the second camp of extrapolating. Why does this work? What's the concept behind it? I also can see use for learning a lick, right? I mean, because I remember, and I still, even to today, I'm still trying to shed on things and all of that. Would have like a PDF of, and this is before you can put it on iPad and all of that. It was all they really have the fake book in your hand and all of that. But I remember downloading some stuff off the internet, printed out, and like 251s and all these licks that you can play. I did some of that too as well, or either transcribing something. But I think like you said, it's such a mechanical approach. But it can get you there, but then you need to know the why. Why does this work? And then how can I extrapolate this and play it in different keys? Because ultimately what you're doing in improvisation, you're making melody, you're telling a story. And if you don't want to sacrifice the story for the technical check boxes, here's Bud Powell. Okay. Here's a little bit of, Oscar Peterson, you heard that. Okay. But you're telling their story. You need to tell your story. So you have to know how to extrapolate that.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell students. It's a language. It's just like as a child, we learn words from imitating. And then once we get to words and phrases, and then we get to a point where we can express ourselves using the knowledge that we have. So that's my approach.
Right on. So you've done some recording. You've got your recent release, which I've had the honor of checking out that music and actually playing some of that music, and it's killing. That your personality, your style, your artistry, I totally spark to and love, and I love your approach. I love how you play. So tell us a little bit about your latest recording, anything you've done prior to that, and if you have any projects in the works coming up.
Yeah. Well, first of all, one of the greatest gigs I've had was with you when you came to Good Times, and it was a Christmas gig, and it was crazy. It was, I mean, it's one of those things you got to be there to experience it. I mean, all the stuff and it's like, I think from a philosophical aspect, I think we're like, myself and including my brothers in a trio, we all on the same page. This openness, it's like, okay, we're not gonna put any. We're not going to put ourselves in a box, we're going to try to step into the unknown. And I felt that. I mean, I felt that even when we did our concert at the Hilton Head Jazz Camp, it was like, wow, I was blown away by your playing. And just the idea of just embracing, it's like, okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's the intent of the music, is the intent of what we're saying coming from. So I thank you for just, I thank you for the connection of just meeting you and just having a fellow person that's, that have that philosophy about the music, because it really does shine through. But as far as the recording, this is the recording that I did, which, when I say the name, people are like, whoa, what, how do you spell it? What does it mean? It's called a Zubuke, which is Azubuke. I hope I spelled that correctly. Sometimes I kind of, but it's not just a fancy word. It's actually, one of the reasons why I was looking for a title, I wanted a title that had some meaning. And when for the songs that was recorded, which we released last year, I look at it as almost like a concept album. But the title comes from it's an African, and to be more exact, it's a title from the Igbo tribe of Nigeria, which is a tribe in Nigeria. I have friends that are, I know a couple of guys that's from Igbo, good friends of mine, and it basically means the past is our strength. So I wanted something that was, that kind of spoke to me, and that can also somewhat, when can be encouraging, if anybody decide to, if they look at the title of the CD, because I put that on the title, the meaning of it. So it can have a little bit of gravitas. But that particular album was the first album I created. That was my debut album. And a lot of those songs came out of working with my brothers, Mark Chesno on bass, Robert Saunders on drums. Prior to the album, we played and really grown together as a unit in Savannah, playing at Good Times Jazz Club, which was a fertile ground for growth for us because we played so much. Prior to Good Times, I've known Robert since he was a child, literally. He was a child. He is literally the baby of the group, even though he's late 20s, and I've known him and played with him. And then Mark came to Savannah, and I think we all just found each other prior to, because Robert and I played with each other, and he grew up, and then, I kind of lost. We didn't play together as much, and then we kind of reconnected playing in other groups. And then Mark comes and moved to Savannah. I'm like, yes, we got another bass player. We need. Yeah. we don't have a lot of bass players in Savannah, and he was so open. I think the openness is what helps us merge together, because we're everybody's so democratic and everybody's so unselfish. And so a lot of those songs came from playing at the club, and out of those many different gigs we would do, playing with different people, inspiration would come along, and then I would write music, and then we would have a place where we can try it out, and for better or worse, we'll say, okay, we played it, then make adjustments, and it kind of grew from that. And so those it's from that album, there I think 8 songs that we recorded. Actually, we recorded 9, but we only put 8 on there. We may do the 9th. We may try to do it at a later date or whatever. But yeah, it came out of that, and a lot of the songs that sonically, it's I guess technically it's a trio album. But if you listen to the album, it's more a lot of stuff going on besides just piano, drums, and bass. Yeah. But I like the element of combining electronic elements along with acoustic elements. I'm a child of the 80s, grew up in the 80s. So although I started playing piano and an acoustic instrument, I also got into synthesizers, and I like the colors that it can afford you. So I like the combination of having that acoustic element with the piano, upright bass, and drums, and then also having the extra color and layers of pads and strings and all of that, without having the moniker of fusion. I don't really look at it as a fusion album. I just look at it as a jazz album,
Yeah. The record is very organic, man. Like the use of the electronics is still very real and organic. It doesn't sound overly produced or anything. It's very well done, man.
Yeah. Thanks to Peter. That he helped to record it, and forgive me, Peter, I didn't say your last name because it's a rather long name. But Peter, the guy named Peter, had a studio in Savannah, Dollhouse Productions, which he had a beautiful 9-foot grand piano, and I know I wanted the piano to be the center of it. I didn't want the electronics or all of the synth stuff to get in the way. I just wanted to help color. And since composition is like what I love to do, and I like the idea of orchestration. Since, it's like, hey, I can't afford to have a string quartet or have a chamber orchestra or something like that to add parts. So I'll use synthesizers and use them as in an orchestrational type of way. So, Yeah, we recorded that music, and we played it live multiple times, and it seemed like every time we played things, there's something new. I think it's matured over time too, since when we first started too as well. So
yeah, dig it. Tell us a little bit about the show that's going to be showcasing on next Thursday at 6:30 p.m. What are we going to see? What are we going to hear?
Yeah. So we are in the process of actually recorded the show early this week, because we want to just jump on it and make sure, because the guys everybody's pretty busy, and also with the advent of COVID and all of that, it's kind of hard to meet, and get together, so we had an opportunity, thanks to Lone Wolf Lounge, to do a recording, and we're basically the show itself is set up where we're presenting songs. We recorded a lot of the stuff individually, and we're putting them all together and really have it really as professionally done in a nice way, where people can say, okay, this song, they can see the name of the song and know who the composer. But basically, we have some standards. We also have a lot of original music too as well. We play homage to the great Dizzy Gillespie, of course, which one of my favorite songs that Dizzy recorded was Con Alma, which is very unique harmonically and just in many different ways. I love that song. So we pay homage to that. And then we also incorporate a lot of the original stuff too. So you hear a lot of original music from the album. And the cool thing I like about it is when we finished the session, we said, man, we haven't played together in a long time, but it seemed like it was, as I think Robert might have said this, we got a little bit of seasoning. It's like we put a little bit of seasoning on it, some sauce on it, because we all had a lot of different life experiences dealing with COVID. Everybody, we gotten older, we got mature, and I think you can hear maturity from, if you've heard the album, to what we did in this particular presentation with a lot of the music. So yeah, we're doing a combination of some standards as well as some original music. So. And we stretch out too. We just and it's crazy because when you don't play together for a while, you kind of wonder if there's going to be that synergy. Man, do we still have it? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I think we do. I think and I think the idea of, they say, time away makes the heart grow fonder. I think that kind of helps too, because now it's like, wow, let's jump on it. So. Yeah, Mark and Robert, man, those guys, I can't say enough about them. They're freaking amazing. And they make anybody they play, any group or any ensemble they play with, they make it 10 times better, because they're so open, and there's an interplay. It's very democratic. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Your group is phenomenal. I mean, cats up in New York need to take note, like the world needs to take note of what you guys are doing. It's really, world class, man, truly world class. And I'm
sorry. Yeah. Well, I was going to say one thing about them too, is of course, the experiences that I've had throughout dealing with, some personal issues, health issues and stuff like that. Those guys was in the midst of all of that. Mm. So when you go through health issues and stuff like that, and they say the family goes through it too as well. I think we formed a stronger brotherhood through that, and that we actually, went through, some really hard, tough things together. So I think the bond that was forged through adversity helped to encapsulate our brotherhood, and it shows in the music because of the fact that it's more to it than just us playing. It's like we actually like each other. We're like brothers. I mean, sometimes we don't agree, and all of that. And it's like, we actually literally like each other. I mean, we have, group text amongst the trio, you know, and share videos and all of that, just between all three of us, you know, and outside of the music, we have things that we have in common too, you know. And so I think that, you know, going through a myriad of trial by fire, you know, has really encapsulate what we have together too. So it's hard to describe it, you know.
Yeah, amen. I mean, I cannot say enough about you guys. I mean, words just fall short. So I'm really excited to see what you've put together for the concert as part of this festival, and so thrilled to have you as part of it, and thankful and all of that, man. Just incredible. You guys are so darn special. And, you know, I cherish all the moments that I've had a chance to play with you guys. And I mean, my wife would tell you,
here,
whole different experience when you play with guys who are truly coming from the heart of service, of serving the music, of support, of, you know, just doing their best to make what is happening the best that it can be. And you guys do that for each other, and whoever's standing and playing a horn, you guys are doing your damnedest to make everything the best it could possibly be. And that's a rare thing, man. And that's beautiful. And I'm so glad that this festival is going to celebrate you guys and have you out there. So, hey, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you, Nikki, for joining us all this time.
Thank you.
Drive safe, ride safe. Appreciate y'all.
Yes. It was great fun. Thank you for having us. It was great. Great fun.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Y'all, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, ciao.
See you later.